And now the third talk, uh, we are going to invite Bhante Vijita. He also originally from Sri Lanka, but now lives in Canada. Then, yes, kindly start your talk.
My humble respect to all the senior monks who are here and all the other venerable monks, and greetings to all the participants. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to this special gathering and talk about Buddhist perspectives on near death and Buddhist practices. As invited and requested, my focus is to reflect a little bit on the Theravada Buddhist practices. Here, I would like to take your attention to a few discourses of the Buddha. And if you would like to, read them, so I invite you to write down. And Venerable monks knows these suttas. Mainly Anathapindaka Sutta, that is one of the significant discourses comes in Theravada tradition. Anathapindika was one of the famous lay followers of the Buddha. And in this discourse, it talks about when he comes to his end of life, how Buddha himself and other respected monks, how they supported him. The other sutta that I'm referring here is Gilana Sutta. There was another householders named Chitta. When he come to his end of life, how the monks supported him. The other one is Nakula Pitu Sutta. Nakula Pitu is one of the lay followers of the Buddha. And the other one is Channovada Sutta. Channa also one of the monks, and he attained enlightenment. And how other venerable monks, when he comes to his end of life, how other monks supported him. So summarizing all these discourses, and what I came to know that Buddha himself and all the other venerable monks who are well versed in Dharma, when they see or support someone who is at the end of their life, what they did is supported that person to reflect on the Dhamma. That's a very significant act, in the Buddhist tradition, that when we support someone who is coming to the end of their life, that what we can do is support that person to reflect on the Dhamma. So this has to be done very gently, so we don't want to disturb too much when someone is coming to the end of life. And how do we support is the question. When we are alive, it is, I think, very important to write down what are some of the discourses that you like to reflect at the last moment of your life. And if there is someone that you trust, what are some of the reflection from the Dhamma that you would like this person to read? And that will help you to reflect on your own practices and, keep your mind at a peaceful state. And the other part is, when someone is coming to the end of life, it's a very emotional time for those who are in their families. Mostly they cry and, all these negative vibrations, but it's very important to support this person, to keep that person's mind in a very calm and quiet state. without much, generating negative energy in that environment. The other thing is that when someone is coming to the end of life, mostly in Theravada traditions, people invite monks and do chantings. So that's one of the very famous practices. It is important to remember, when you are alive, even to read those, chantings and understand the meaning of them. So that when the monks come and do chanting, that will help you to reflect on the Dharma itself. So these are some of the rituals that we can do at the end of life. The other one I would like to mention, one other practices is, thinking of or reminding good things that person has done in this life. When someone comes to at the end of life, fear is a very strong emotion that can overtake. So therefore, supporting that person, we can remind some of the beautiful things that this person has done in terms of practicing dana, sila, bhavana. So those reminders will help that person to, keep the mind in a positive state. So these are some of the rituals, some of the practices that we can do in order to support when someone is coming to the end of life. So what are the Buddhist perspectives on death? And the two venerable monks, provided a very deep explanation about life and, Buddhist perspectives around those things. One thing that Buddha always encourages us is, to reflect death itself and do meditation on death and be familiar with death, talk about death and don't afraid to, experience that reflection when you can, even to think about the very moment that you're going to die and reflecting on that, noticing what are the fears, what are the emotions that I encounter when I think of my own mortality. Thinking of those and dealing with them and being very comfortable with death is very important. So when you're comfortable with death, there's no fear, there's no frustration, there's no anger, and you are completely ready to live. So this readiness comes as a practice of Dhamma. So when Sariputta, one of the famous, well-known disciples of the Buddha, when he visited Anathapindika, when the Anathapindika was old, sick, and comes to his end of life, the Venerable Sariputta invited him. You should train yourself in this way. I won't cling to my eye. I won't cling into my, ear. I won't cling into my, body, and so forth. So when someone hasn't practiced Dhamma, and if we're going to tell these things, might not make sense when, when your body and mind is so weak and not be able to comprehend those deep teachings. So therefore, Buddha's invitation is, when you can, when you are fully conscious, when you have strength, lead your life on Dhamma. Do this reflection and train your mind. So when you have that training, you eventually come to an understanding that this life is nothing but two things. One is arising and passing away. In Theravada tradition, the two words being highlighted is Uppada and Vaya. So there is no one middle thing that exists as Titi, but two things. What is arising and passing away? Arising and passing away. There is no anything in between that exists without changing. So this teaching is one of the significant teaching of the Buddha, that is Paticca Samuppada, dependent co-origination, and there are different translations to this as well. Simply it means that whatever arises based on causes and conditions. When the causes and conditions are not there, that ceases. So as the Venerable said at the beginning, and it comes in the Theravada tradition as well, that, when we born, we start dying. So we celebrate birth, but don't celebrate death. It's very unfair in a way, So we have to celebrate both. So for the Dhamma practitioner, death is a celebration. There's nothing to be worried and feared or anxious. All these strong emotions comes when there is perspective that I exist. And then this I is going to die. But the whole Dhamma practice invites us to see there is no I. It's only arising and passing away. There's just this whole existence is based on causes and conditions. So therefore, when there is no I, there's no one to die. So there are those reflections as well that are helpful to understand. But when it comes to end of life and supporting someone, is a good practice to write down what you would like to reflect at the last moment of your life. What are the teaching that you would like to hear? How you want the environment to be? Do you want it to be calm? Do you want it to be peaceful? Do you want other people to come and disturb you, constantly talking to you, or you just want to leave alone and stay calm? So it's good to write down and, like you write your will. I think it's a good practice to write down and keep it as a record that at the last moment of your life, those who are in your family knows how to create that environment. I think I'm going to stop here. We can leave some time for the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm asking it. Anyway, I think anyone say, any speaker who did or Venerable one. That would be important to know. Now we know what should be done, like making the person who is dying Dhamma oriented. And the other thing I want to know is what shouldn't be done. Because some people would hug them and cry in front of them, things like that. So what would be the consequences of that type of action?
Yes, I think that's a very good thing to reflect on. From my experience, I have seen sometimes even the monks, we decide what to do at the last moment of, our devotees. I think as a practice, maybe it's a good thing to ask question, what do you like? What brings you peace? How are you feeling? knowing where the person is at that moment, if that person can communicate at the last moment, I think, asking those questions that will help us to support that person from where that person is, not just pouring on things that may be unfamiliar and not able to grasp at that moment. So that's kind of a, I think, important point to remember when supporting someone at the last moment. Even crying around that person, if that person well versed in Dharma, I believe it won't bother that person. That person has that Dharma practice to stabilize the mind. So, but someone who hasn't practiced Dhamma, seeing that crying people around and sadness around can create more sadness and attachment and, not feeling ready to live. So that can create too much trouble for that person. So therefore, for a Dhamma practitioner, I don't think it will be a problem, but it is better to leave that person alone, cry outside, I guess, not in front. And that's our love and kindness supporting that person to, peacefully have a death. And it's also depend on the person as well. Sometimes we don't know where they are in their Dhamma practices. So it's something unseen.
Thank you so much for that answer. So let's Laura, I think Martin. Is it correct, my pronunciation of your name?
Yes, Laurel Martin. Thank you. Well, I've got 3 questions. One for that's unrelated to the other 2 is for any of the 3 who want to respond. If someone has already died and it's been several years, is there anything that you can do to help them, or are they just gone?
I think answers start from Rinpoche and Achida and Fabpang.
If Venerable, you want to go ahead, so you can, but otherwise I can make a comment on that.
Please go ahead, Venerable.
So when someone is dead, in the Buddhist perspectives, we believe a circle of samsara, life, birth and death. If we really think, our relatives might still think of us and transfer merits and doing good things. But we have no capacity to see you, pursue any of those as humans. So if someone born as a human, they may not receive merits or anything that we do for them. And there's one particular place in text it describes as in this existence where they're born, yet they expect some merits. So for those who are living, doing good things, they create a space that these people can see and be happy. So creating that space for them to experience happiness is merit transferring or transferring merit itself. So when someone is dead, most rituals are for those who are alive, for their grief and to bring more, peace to their lives. But it is so hard to say that whether they receive our good thoughts, because it's an unseen reality. So out of compassion, we do meritorious activities like giving dana, helping someone, and cultivate good thoughts, good energy in our heart, in our mind. And we invite, if you can see my good deeds, please look at this and be happy and make your journey a peaceful one. So we do that invitation. And it is so hard to say that the outcome of that from their end, but for sure it helped us in our grief and to cultivate more good things in our life as well.
I have a question for Venerable Vijita Kirinda. You said that you try to help the dying person as much as you can. Could you give us some advice about helping someone who has a dementia or Alzheimer during the dying process? Thank you. You muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you for the question, Ian. That's a very good question to reflect. When someone is having dementia or Alzheimer, it's quite tricky. But the unknown part is, our mind, how it acts. So we don't know totally how their mind acts as well. So there can be a moment that they come into just normal senses and, can grasp something. So there might be things that this person has been listening as a chanting maybe whole life, or something that as a reflection enjoyed doing, maybe as a meditation practice. Only person knows about these practices is someone close to this person. So it's always good to check with the family or the person who has been close to this person and check with them what this person enjoy doing as in their Dharma practice. Maybe facilitating chanting according to his practices or her practices, or talking about those things and doing short reflections might help. But unfortunately, I cannot say one particular practice to support, but just being there with your compassionate presence and caring presence also will be a big support for that person. Sometimes with people with Alzheimer and those diseases, they sometimes go through a lot of fear and anxiety, So it's good to provide you compassionate support and caring support, and just being there and, giving you compassion would help. So those are some of the suggestions that I can make at this moment.
Thank you so much for the answer. May I have one more question, please? My question is for Venerable Phap Huang. So for someone who has dementia, definitely it's difficult to help during the dying process. But as you mentioned earlier, that if you have a good karma, you will float like oil on water, or you will sing like a bottle in the ocean. In this case, although we cannot help the person, but what do you suggest about the person's karma for going through this process? Will the person still float if he or she has done good karma, or because of the mental state will take the person to a different path? Thank you. I hope my question is clear.
Thank you for giving me very good question. So before I say you, if we have a good karma, yeah, so we can go with the next life, good life. And also if you have a good karma, like you also can help others. So I think every day we should do more good thing, yeah, and we can keep more good thing, like a fur for Buddhist monk, or do good charity for poor people. Yeah, and also the punya also you can get from if you have the good sila, and also for meditation, because the karma is very important when we are needed that. And also you also can share the good karma, the good merit to the people near the death. I think in my tradition, maybe the people near death, they can get a little from your karma if you share them. So this is a clear answer to you.
I understand your answer. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for the questions and answers.